into this topic of scramble sets, which happens to be the first mathematical definition of chaos. We all know that chaos is something which deals with some kind of unpredictability, some kind of instability, and we all also know that it was basically in late 18th century that Poincaré observed that the planetary motion is an unstable system. So, with this observation, there has been lot of unpredictability and lot of instability observed in many natural systems, but there was no rigorous systematic mathematical definition or any study of chaos. So, nobody looked into like putting it into an axiomatic form and studying it up. We also know that many natural systems, it was also observed that many natural systems, they have some kind of a very random behavior, and with this random behavior there is also some kind of a pattern involved in it. So, this kind of pattern seen in a random behavior was something which many philosophers had termed as, does God play dice? So, many of the natural systems that you see, you will find that there is a total random behavior, and with this random behavior you find that even though there is some kind of pattern involved in it, and today we shall be starting, we want to look into, we want to study these kinds of patterns where you find irregularity, you find some kind of predictability, you kind of sort of chaos. So, we shall look into this aspect. Now, it was for the very first time that in 1975 that Lee and York gave this first mathematical definition of chaos in their epic paper. So, their epic paper is period 3 implies chaos. Now, if we look into this definition, though when they have given this definition has given rise to many other definitions also, but as we know today, this is a very weak, in fact one of the weakest forms of definition of chaos. So, there are other definitions of chaos also which clearly imply this particular definition. So, first of all, let us look into what this definition is. So, we all know for us, we start with X D to be a matrix space. And our system, so we start with this definition of a scramble set. So, for the system, so our dynamical system is XF. So, for the system XF, right, let S be a subset of X with the following properties such that, so what we want is that for every P and Q in S with P not equal distinct P and Q. So, we have this first property that if I take the Lim sup of the distance between this orbit of P and Q, then this is always positive, and if I look into the lim inf, that is the infimum of this distance, so we find that this orbit is sort of the points in all the set S is such that you take any 2 points over there, the orbits arbitrarily, for infinitely often they will come arbitrarily close to each other, but then they will also diverge, that means infinitely many times they will be very very far away from each other. So, if you want to look that, maybe we can think of looking into this orbits. So, supposing this is my orbit of X, So, this is basically my orbit of x. I start with this point x and my orbit of x goes, y is another point here. So, in S, then my orbit of y will be something like this. So, infinitely often it comes close to the orbit of x and infinitely often it is very far from the orbit of x. So, typically we are looking for a set S with these properties. Then we say that if S has this property, we say that S is a scrambled set. So, S is a scrambled set. So, we have this definition of scrambled set here. We are looking out basically for a scrambled set. Now, you can imagine that the unpredictability seen in this kind of system, supposing there is a scrambled set, the unpredictability seen is too large, because if you have these two, if you come across these two orbits, right, you never know what is going to happen, because this will be basically away from each other, basically very close to each other, and we find that the definition of chaos basically is looking into this kind of unpredictability. So, of course, this is Lee-York's definition. So, we come up with what is the definition. So, the system XF is called Lee-York chaotic if X admits an uncountable scrambled set. So, that means that now when I am looking out for my scramble set, right, my system is said to be chaotic if we have an uncountable set of points for which the orbits come arbitrarily close to each other and also they move apart, right, with some distance. So, this is what is basically the definition of chaos, the first definition of chaos proposed by Lee and York. Now, if you look into this definition of chaos, as I had said earlier, happens to be very weak definition of chaos. This implies lot of other definitions. So, we first look into something more simpler here. Now, we have something called of course, we have the system called Lee-York chaotic, but then now I am looking into a pair, right. So, if I look into this pair, so I take this pair x y, this is called a Lee-York pair if I take this 2 point set x and y, this is a scrambled set. Then there was a variation in this definition, and the variation in this definition came up that if for my scramble set, instead of taking my lim sup to be, or instead of taking my supremum to be greater than 0, if I have this condition, then S is called a delta scramble set. We have something called a Lee-York pair, and it is very important many times to observe that the system has a Lee-York pair. That means at least we have 2 points which constitute a scramble set. So, based on this definition, the definition Lee-York chaos goes up saying that there is Lie of chaos if it has an uncountable scramble set. So, based on that there were other definitions of chaos proposed, and these definitions are something called dense chaos. Dense chaos is simply saying that you have a dense set of scramble set, and there is another definition which is again used a lot, quite a lot, depends on the scramble set, which is called distributional chaos. I am not going into the details of distributional chaos, but again this is also something which is studied a lot and it is related. Now, what Lie and York proposed was that if you have a periodic orbit of period 3, then basically that implies that there exists an uncountable scramble set. What happened was further Kutcher and Smithel sometimes in 2002, right, they proposed that for the system I have an interval I and I have f where my I is basically an interval in R. This 2-point scramble set implies an uncountable scramble set. So, for intervals it is enough to see whether we have a scramble set, we have a, at least we have a Lie pair, right. 2-point scramble set means just a Lie pair. So, for an interval it is enough to see that there is a Lie pair. If there exists a Lie pair, then it means that it is Lie chaotic, because that would give us an uncountable scramble set. Now, we go back to today we will be only discussing Lie and York's theorem of period 3 implying chaos. So, we look into this theorem. So, this is Lie-York theorem. Now, again Lie-York theorem is based on the interval, because we are working on intervals. Last time in the previous class we had seen that if we have a periodic point of period 3, right, that implies that there exist periodic points of all periods. And if you try to recall the proof of that, we had used this idea of looking into where does consecutive intervals map. So, we are again going to recall that property, right, and we are going to look into this proof. So, what does Lie-York theorem says that? It says that if f is a system from I to I, right, some interval to interval is continuous. So, that means I am working in the dynamical system I f, and f admits a periodic orbit of period 3, then this system I f is Lie-York chaotic. So, Lie-York theorem is very simple. You have a system on an interval, and on an interval if the system has a periodic orbit of period 3, that implies that it is Lie-York chaotic. That means we are saying that there exists an uncountable scramble set. Now, we will be looking only into the outline of this proof, because a rigorous proof is very difficult to give at this particular stage, and of course, it would require a lot of time. So, we will try to look into the outline which we can finish in this particular lecture. So, now what we want to do is we want to look into this system again, and to look into the system again what we need is, we need a periodic orbit of period 3. So, that is what first of all I am trying to draw the graph of the system which has a periodic orbit of period 3. Now, for this particular system, if I want a periodic orbit of period 3, then I know I should have something like this. I have an A here, right, and I know that the value of A has to be B, right, and then I know that the value of B has to be say some C, and then I know very well that the value of C has to be equal to A. So, I need to have a periodic point. So, basically this point have to be attained. At A the value has to be equal to B, at B the value has to be equal to C, and at C the value has to be equal to A. So, I need a system, right, which has this periodic orbit of period 3, and we can simply draw this system, not very difficult to draw this system. So, I think of this system, maybe looking into the system, right. So, it will basically be a curve which passes through these 3 points. We are very well aware that any kind of system, it could be anything over here. Lot of this depends, because you have this orbit of period 3, lot of it depends on what is now, you know that this has to be, this graph at this particular point has to take up this kind of form, right. So, a lot of what we are going to discuss in this proof depends on what will be basically the derivatives, or basically what will be the slope, what kind of curve we will have over here. So, what kind of curve can we trace which has this kind of property, and we find that there are most of the curves that we can trace with this particular property will be basically of this kind, and then has it, what our proof will basically depend on what kind of differentiable properties do this curve have, right. So, what kind of slopes can you examine, what will be the kind of tangent plane that you can observe for this particular curve. So, our proof depends basically on that aspect, and that is what we shall be discussing. Now, we again recall something which we had already seen in case of our proof for Sarkowski's, for basically the corollary of Sarkowski's theorem. So, what are we going to look into? We are going to look into this part. So, this is my A, right. This is basically my B, and this is my C, and we observe that f of A is B, right, f of B is C, and f of C is A. Also, we recall what we had given as some kind of nomenclature, that this interval a b, right, I am writing it as I naught, and this interval b c is being written as I1. We all saw that what happens in this case is that if I take f of I naught, right, that particularly contains I1, could be more, we do not know, right, and if we take f of I1, it contains the union of both I naught and I1. So, this is something which we had already observed last time. There is something more which we had observed last time, and we can come back to that. So, what we had observed last time was that if I start with a small interval, I know that f of I1 contains I1, right. So, we can start, we have a small interval J1 contained in I1, right. So, there exists J1 contained in I1 such that f of J1, right, is equal to I1, right, and you can proceed in this manner. I also know that f of I1 contains I naught, right. So, there can exist an interval K1 contained in I1 such that f of K1 equal to I naught. This is also something possible. And we had also observed that f of I naught contains I1. So, we can have another interval, say L1, right, subset of I naught such that f of L1 is equal to I1. Right. So, we have these observations with us. Now, with the help of this observation, what we can do is, we can simply start with some kind of intervals. So, let me start with an interval, say J1. I start with some interval J1. Now, my J1 is either a subset of I1 or a subset of I naught. I just start with J1, right, and then I am looking into the fact that I have another interval J2, and my J2 is such that f of J1 contains J2. Then given a J2, so once a J2 is given, I can have take an interval J3 such that f of J2 contains J3, right. Then again I can keep on going in this manner. So, I can always have for an interval Jn, right, I can always have another subinterval Jn minus 1. Now, these intervals will always be subsets. So, I will have this J1, J2, Jn, right. These will all be subsets of the interval AC, right, and whether they are a part of I naught or a part of I1, right, we will try to push some conditions into that, but we can always find such kind of intervals. Now, what we try to do is, for this particular kind of intervals, right, we try to define a set of sequences. So, now I am interested in looking into a set of sequences. So, what do we start here? So, I take f to be, so I am taking this set of sequences. So, let J be the set of sequences Jn, right. So, these are basically sequences of subintervals in AC such that the first condition I want is that my Jn is either I naught, right, or Jn is a subset of I1 such that with my f of Jn, right, containing Jn plus 1. So, this is my very first condition, and the second condition that I put in this sequence of intervals is that, so the second condition is that if my Jn is I naught, right. So, at least I want that Jn should be equal to I naught at some particular stage, because I do not want to always, I can always remain in J1, but I do not want to do that. So, if Jn is equal to I naught, right, then n should be equal to k square for some k in n. So, it is when n equal to, so it can be I naught at many other places, but at least I want that whenever your n is equal to k square, whenever n is a perfect square, right, then for this perfect square my Jn should be equal to I naught. So, Jn equal to I naught for n equal to k square, and then my Jn plus 1, at least for next 2 iterates, Jn plus 1, Jn plus 2, they should always be a subset of I1. So, I do not want to remain in I naught all the time, but at least 2 times I want to move out, and this is always going to be possible, because I cannot have 2 immediate perfect squares, right, with a difference of 2, that is always going to be possible. So, what we do is we take up a sequence of intervals, right, with this property. Now, one can say that I can have many such sequences, of course, it is always possible. you start with whatever you start with your J1, right. You can start with J1 to be anything, right. You can have many such possibilities, and for all these possibilities what we have is a collection. So, let F be this collection. So, this is my collection of all Jn with the above properties. So, I have this collection of all such sequence of intervals. Now, when I look into this sequence of intervals, right, I want to now associate a number with it. So, for each, say I am calling it J star, right, belonging to F, I want to now look into some kind of a density here, right. So, such that I am looking into all those J star such that I have some kind of density of numbers here. So, I take this limit as n tends to infinity. I am looking into some number which I call as J star n square divided by n, and I want to call it n star, where what is, first of all I need to define this quantity. So, what is my J star of n square? So, this is basically, this denotes the number So, I am looking into this set 1, 2 up to n, I am looking into this set, right, sorry n square, I am looking into this set, right, 1, 2 up to n square, right, all the number of I for which J I star, that means now I am looking into this J star, right, to be equal to basically the sequence of J I star. So, my J I star should be equal to I naught. I am looking into this number. So, I am looking into those number for which this is equal to I naught, and now I am looking into for those J star in F, right, such that if I look into this particular density of n here, what we find is that this average density of I for which this is equal to the number of I is equal to I naught. So, the average density of I naught in this particular sequence happens to be n star. So, we are trying to look into those, we are collecting those kind of those J star in F. This is equal to n star, and so this is one condition. So, what is this n star? So, I want this n star such that this n star, of course, I want it to be n star, it would be n star for any n, for whatever be the n star, but I want my n star with certain properties, and I want this n star to belong to some, for all this n star to belong to M1, right, such that belongs to M1 for m is some integer which is very much larger than m, but it is less than 1. Now, what is this m? This m basically depends on the derivative of f, right, in this particular interval AC. So, in the interval AC, I am looking into the derivative of f as all the points, and it depends basically this number, I can pick up this number based on that particular derivative. So, we look into the collection of all this J star for which this limit is n star. So, this J star is characterized by n star, and I am looking into all such J star for which my n star belongs to this uncountable set M1, where m is a number which is very close to 1, but basically m is a number between 0 and 1, but it is very close to 1 compared to 0. So, it is very far away from 0, but it is very close to 1. So, I am looking into that particular problem. Now, what more can we say about for this J star? Now, once I have this J star, right, all we know is that for this particular J star, so when I pick up this J star, right, this J star is characterized by this particular N star. So, if I change, if I take another sequence here, so for example, if I take another sequence maybe J hash, so if I take this another sequence J hash, it is going to give me another number N hash, right, where what is this number? So, this number is basically limit as n tends to infinity, right, J hash n square, right, upon n. So, this number will be n hash, and we find that whenever n star is not equal to n hash, right, then these two sequences will be distinct, right. So, J star and J hash are distinct whenever n star and n hash are distinct, and that is what is our next observation, that we take this collection. So, I am now taking this collection F star, collection of the sequences J star such that n star belongs to M 1. Right. I am looking into this sub collection. So, this is basically a sub collection of my F, right. So, we have this sub collection. Now, one thing we can observe is that if or basically if my n star is not equal to n hash, right, then my J star is not equal to J hash, right. We know that they will have different sequences here, and we are taking this collection for all n star belonging to M 1, right. So, basically we are looking into all possible densities, we are allowing all possible densities of the interval I naught coming into this sequence J, right. So, since we are looking into that aspect, we can say that this F star is an uncountable set. So, this F star happens to be an uncountable set. The reason is, for distinct we have distinct, right. If n star is not equal to n hash, then we find that these two things are distinct, and since we are taking an uncountable stuff, we know that this F star is an uncountable set. Now, for each F star, now for each J star, we also observe that now, where does x star belong to? So, x star can either belong to I 0 or I 1 depending on where we started our J 1, right. So, I can get an x star, right, belonging to this interval A C, right, such that f n of x star belongs to G n, right, for every n. So, for every n we have f n of we have an x star such that f n of x star belongs to G n belongs to G n star, right. So, we have this particular sequence in mind. So, this belongs to G n star for every n, and I take my S now. Specifically, my S here is basically the collection of all x star such that, of course, for every J star I have an x star, and each J star is characterized by my n star, right. So, and I am looking into all those n star for which we can clearly observe, right, that S is an uncountable set. So, S happens to be an uncountable set, and more can we observe about this S? So let me take PQ in S. Now, I can find infinitely many n. So, there exist, because if I take PQ in S, right, each P and Q will correspond to distinct sequences, right, in my F star. So, PQ are in S and they correspond to distinct sequences in F star, and so what we find out is that there exist infinitely many n for which if I look into F and P, it will belong to I naught, and if I look into F and Q, it will belong to I 1, right. So, infinitely many times we will find that F and P is in I naught and F and Q is in I 1, and there will be infinitely many such n. So, what can we say about this particular scenario? Then we can say that the supremum here is positive, always positive. Now, what happens here when I am looking into PQ in S and n being equal to n square or n plus 1 square? So, what happens, because we had put some condition on the squares. So, what happens for the square, right? So, what happens here is, I am not getting into the details of the proof here, but we can always find I am calling it B star, right, belonging to this interval AC, right, such that if I look into my F n square of P, F n square of Q, right, F n plus 1 square of P, F n plus 1 square of Q, right, so on. So, if I find this thing, these will be all, these are arbitrarily closed to B star. So, they will all come up very arbitrarily close to this point B star, and with this observation all we can say is these are coming very close to one single point, right. So, what can we say about the infimum of the distances between them, right. So, the infimum of the distances between them will be going to 0, right. So, if I look into the infimum here, so that proves that you have period 3 on an interval. This period 3 gives you an uncountable scramble set. Although actually in practice it is very difficult to find out an uncountable scramble set. It is very difficult to say that okay fine, this is our scramble set and this is uncountable, because again we cannot compute there. Computer always has some kind of precision and it always calculates along with that precision. We end up here. We will see some more properties later.